Hi, everyone. Welcome to this virtual event put on by The Logic about artificial intelligence and productivity in Canada. Two of the biggest subjects, I think, in Canadian economic talk and Canadian public policy talk today. Thank you all for being here. Welcome to longtime Logic subscribers. Welcome to new Logic subscribers. And welcome to those who maybe first heard about The Logic last week when somebody flipped them the link for this event. We are a digital news site, if you're new here, that covers the future of the Canadian economy. We have reporters in all of Canada's biggest cities, one of two reporters we have covering the federal government and adjacent industries in Ottawa. We cover innovation in everything from electric vehicles to cryptocurrency to agriculture to mining and everything in between. Everything that matters for where the Canadian economy and our lives are going to be in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. If you're a subscriber, you already know this, but if you're not, there are certain perks that come with being a subscriber. We have open free events like this one, but we also have subscriber exclusive events that are very popular, where we share insight into particular things that we've been covering, like budget look backs, and also look aheads at the beginning of the year and talk about who the movers and shakers are. Lots of business intelligence in there. We do community surveys, sort of help the tech community and the innovation community understand what's going on within itself, so people can talk to each other. And on that front, we have our own Slack, where subscribers can network, can talk about our journalism, and can post their own events and do a little bit of promotion as well. It's a nifty little corner of the internet. We like it very much, and we think you probably will too, first time you see it. This event, as I say, is an open one, thanks to the sponsorship of Microsoft Canada. And so, without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to John Weigelt, who is the National Technology Officer for Microsoft Canada, to talk about why this discussion today is important. John?
Thanks, David. And I would like to extend a welcome to all of you who are tuning in today. We're living in an exciting time for AI innovation in Canada. For decades, Canada has led in AI research excellence, bolstering world-class talent, fueling an ecosystem to support local innovation, and boosting productivity. As we look ahead to Canada's future, our long-term competitiveness and prosperity depends on how we embrace and advance in this new AI era. One of the key factors shaping Canada's growth is innovation. We're not just talking about creating new technologies, but also about improving existing ones and finding new ways to solve problems, meet the evolving needs of customers and the world. Innovation is what makes us competitive, productive, and prosperous in a globalized world. And with the rapid advancement of generative AI, Canada has a unique opportunity to leverage this powerful technology as not only a source of innovation, but also as an enabler and accelerator of innovation. A soon-to-be-released study from Accenture and Microsoft demonstrates the significant opportunity Gen AI presents to Canada, potentially adding more than $185 billion to the economy by 2030. Findings from the report also show how Gen AI has the potential to boost productivity by saving Canadian workers up to 125 hours a year. That's the equivalent of half an hour every working day, resulting in 8% increase in productivity by 2030. The stakes are high. Generative AI offers an opportunity not only to boost our productivity, but also improve the living standards of Canadians. Every great business stands to benefit from AI, not only in the same way, but the positive impacts are high in every industry. At Microsoft, we're enthusiastic about the possibilities of AI and what it can do for people, communities, as well as small, medium, and large businesses across Canada now and into the future. Many organizations are already using AI to reduce administrative tasks and make work more meaningful, improve sustainability, preserve language and culture to deliver services to citizens faster. And the value it's adding across various industries and sectors is evident. For example, the City of Kelowna is developing AI tools to speed up the building permit process by 20 to 30%, enhancing the overall experience of citizens and government workers alike. The Ottawa Hospital is piloting ambient, conversational, and generative AI to draft clinical notes for patient appointments, reducing the administrative burden to Canada's practitioners that they are struggling with. And last week, TELUS unveiled a new generative AI customer support tool, which is helping their customers find valuable information almost 30% faster. This is only the glimpse at the potential of generative AI, and the opportunities are vast. But none of this would be possible if we do not create the conditions that help innovation thrive. Failure to do so could have significant impacts on Canada's competitiveness and result in billions in unrealized GDP. The economic effect of generative AI will vary depending on how widely it's used. A slower adoption scenario could lead to missing $90 billion in annual economic value by 2030. Canada has often chosen a wait and see approach, trailing its OECD peers in AI adoption. In fact, 73% of businesses have not thought about implementing generative AI. With so much on the line, we cannot wait and see when it comes to generative AI today. To overcome these challenges, we need to adopt AI in a responsible way that fosters public confidence and the readiness to use AI. Canada's made incredible progress towards responsible AI adoption through such initiatives as the Pan-Canadian AI Strategy, introduction of the AI and Data Act, and AI investment as part of the 2024 budget. But there is still more work to be done. If we can grow support for this technology, we can enable more sectors to adopt generative AI widely. And that support will happen by building trust in AI amongst civil society and implementing responsible AI practices which enable businesses to feel confident enough to embrace AI's advantages. This is a shared responsibility for both government and industry. At Microsoft, we aim to create and deploy AI that will benefit society and earn its trust. We are committed to creating responsible AI by design. We believe the principles of fairness, reliability and safety, privacy and security, inclusiveness, all supported by an underlying foundation of transparency and accountability, provide a durable framework for building trust and should guide the development of AI. By building trust in AI, we can increase its adoption and bring positive impacts to the lives of Canadians. In turn, strengthening public support and encouraging more people to use generative AI. Over time, generative AI will keep improving and people will continue innovating. This will increase the positive impact on our lives in ways we are only just imagining. It offers us unprecedented opportunities to deliver new value to Canada's economy by boosting productivity and supporting the creation of new products and services, solving global challenges, and improving the quality of life for all Canadians. We need to embrace this new era of AI with a spirit of innovation and optimism, but with a deep sense of responsibility and collaboration. This means ensuring that Canada has a robust regulatory guardrails in place to address safety and protect fundamental rights while fostering the potential of this technology. This will help keep Canada at the forefront of global innovation and keep our economy growing. Working across all sectors, we can ensure that AI is used for good and that no business or individual is left behind. It is possible to strike the balance between safeguarding Canadians, minimizing harm, and enabling businesses in Canada to be more confident in AI adoption. We recognize the standards are high, and we are helping shape that regulation rather than fight against it to ensure AI can be used in a way that's fair, safe, and rights respecting. From our perspective, regulation should be risk-based, focusing safeguards on the highest risk applications, requiring action from both developers and deployers of AI to address the context-specific nature of AI risks, and leverage impact assessments and system testing to identify and address risks and ensure systems are performing appropriately. If we all support responsible AI implementation and thereby build trust in generative AI, we will increase the adoption and realize the full productivity and prosperity benefits of it. It's not an easy task, but it's essential for Canada's future growth. I'm absolutely thrilled to be part of this important discussion and look forward to hearing the insights and experiences from our incredible speakers on how we can achieve this goal together. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, both for your sponsorship of this event and for that very helpful introduction. In this country, productivity has become an urgent problem. I was covering the 2022 federal budget, and kind of buried deep within Chrystia Freeland's speech, she talked about productivity being Canada's Achilles heel. 2 years later, things are worse than they were then. our productivity has declined, and because we're not doing as much stuff as efficiently and quickly relative to our peer countries, our standard of living has begun to slip. GDP per capita, basically the amount of stuff we make and enjoy, is declining, actually, in genuine terms, not just not accelerating as quickly as we would like. There have been a lot of studies that say embracing artificial intelligence is one solution, at least part of a solution to that. But what we're going to talk about today is what that actually means, to take it out of the realm of the abstract and into the concrete. And to do that, we have an all-star panel who I'm really excited to introduce to you. First, Mila Banerjee, who is the CEO and tech lead of Pronti AI, which is a tech startup, but she's a serial entrepreneur. This is not her first rodeo. We're going to talk about what Pronti AI does, but it did help me dress for today. We can talk about how that works. We have Bieda, who is the Chief Data and Analytics Officer at BMO. Not her first big bank, where she has been a very senior analytics figure, trying to figure out how to deliver financial services to the people who need them most efficiently and effectively. And we have Martin Cohn, the President and Chief Operating Officer of Cohere, certainly one of the biggest names in generative AI in Canada. Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
You look great, David.
Why, thank you. I would hope so. For the folks in the audience, this conversation is meant to be as much about you as it is about us. There's a place for you to put questions in the chat. Please use it. We will get as many of your questions into the conversation as we can, and no need to wait. To begin with, Mila, tell us about Pronti. Tell us what it does and how it works.
Well, Pronti is an outfit generator, and I think you mentioned that you got dressed with it today, which just warmed my heart. So these outfits can be made either from a retailer's inventory, they can be made purely from your closet, or where some of the major magic happens, a combination of both. So for retailers, this is all about in-store productivity and productivity for their associates, because it helps increase the basket size. The mobile app for the retailers is a marketing channel and allows them to be found in the ocean of e-commerce. For users, it reduces your decision fatigue, your outfit stress, and just helps you get ready smoother. And outfit shopping is a really great and sustainable way for you to purchase new things.
So you feed it your wardrobe and the things you like to wear, and it assembles combinations you might not have thought of and also suggests purchases. Is that basically it?
That's correct. That's the mobile app side. Absolutely.
So tell me how this enhances economic activity. You touched on it there, but how is it good for the consumer? How does it make the consumer more productive? And how does it make things on the retail side more productive?
Yeah, so let's take the in-store example. There's a number of times where, maybe even yourself, David, you walked into a store, you saw an item, you were really excited about it, you bought it, and then it sat in your closet. What we're trying to do is help you think about the outfit in total, so that when you're purchasing items, you purchase them together, you think about things in combination, and this leads to you using them more often and fashion sustainability being more pervasive. And so that overall is a value chain of productivity. So retailers experience better sales per square foot in their retail store. You use the things that you already own, and the planet benefits.
What's going on behind the scenes? What's going on under the hood with AI to make this happen?
Yeah, so there's a lot going on under the hood. So we have 6 machine learning algorithms that kind of come together in concert. And we like to think that we're a type of generative AI. So we're not an LLM. That's Martin's department. And we're focused a lot on the creation and computer vision side of things. So our machine learning algorithms will understand your clothing items, will be able to put together and assemble outfits. And that assembly of outfits has been based on a really, really large data set that we've collected from our users.
Excellent. Martin, you are in the LLM business. For a lot of people, I think large language models are sort of synonymous with playing around with ChatGPT, which is really nifty, but also kind of flawed. I mean, one of my favorite things to do is ask it to write a bio of me. And if it gets 3 things right, that's kind of surprising. So obviously you can't base a business on that, but people are basing businesses or business decisions on things that Cohere does. So can you give us an example or two of ways that Cohere's LLMs are making a business work better?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think just addressing what you said is very important. So Cohere, we do train our own proprietary models, both generative models and representation models, the latter for search and discovery and search and retrieval. But very importantly, we are only focused on enterprise. I think many companies here that people have heard of have consumer chatbots. We do not do that. They burn cash and they don't necessarily have the capabilities that enterprises need for what they do. And you brought up a very important point is hallucinations. And I sometimes joke that LLMs are a bit like your annoying uncle at Thanksgiving who always knows everything. And you don't know whether he's right or wrong because he speaks with equal conviction in both cases. LLMs can be like that. You know, they probably very authoritatively explain to you who you are and what your bio was, even though it was probably not right. And
Yep.
so, what we have invested a lot of time and effort into is grounding the output of our platform and our models in data that the models were not trained on, and that's something called retrieval augmented generation. That term was coined by Patrick Lewis, who leads that effort for us, and he invented that capability. And what we do is we teach the models to be really good at not like a Jeopardy contestant, shoving more information in their heads and memorizing everything, but rather being very, very good at knowing where, when, how to search for and retrieve information, generally very safely inside an enterprise's data environment, very up-to-date information. It could have been updated 5 minutes ago, but of course the model wasn't trained on it. It's not in the parametric knowledge. Retrieving that, synthesizing it, giving you an output, and very importantly, where Cohere is unique, giving inline citations where that information came from. And so, for example, if we said, write me a bio about myself, it wouldn't just hope that it was trained on information that knows that. It would go out, it would search for Martin Kahn, it would find authoritative sources like LinkedIn, like Cohere's website, like KKR, where I'm on the board, advisory board, and it would retrieve that, it would generate a response, and it would cite where each point came from. And that's important for enterprises. If you're writing a limerick about your llama, not as much of a big deal, right? But if you're asking your top 10 customers in the Pacific Northwest, it needs to be right. And so everything we do is about enabling enterprises to have the capabilities that they need. We were referred to recently.
What's an enterprise that's using it?
Yeah, so a couple
Using
examples.
technology.
One is I'll give you two examples. One is more to sort of augment what they do now, and another one is sort of maybe transform what they're doing. And so to augment, we're now deployed in over 200 use cases inside Oracle's NetSuite app portfolio, and over 50 in their Fusion suite of apps. NetSuite you probably heard of for finance and running a sort of mid-sized businesses, and Fusion has ERP, HCM, CRM, etc. And so there are all these functions and features that are just built into the way people use it today. For example, for HCM, human capital management, writing job descriptions. These are boring things that don't kind of make the front page of the news, but HR professionals do that over and over and over again. And if you can create higher quality job description very quickly for a lot of roles, it's going to save you time. It's going to help you hire better people, or reviewing 10,000 CVs and finding the ones that would, match the criteria that are important for a specific role. And so there
I'm
are
just thinking that the weeks of work that can be saved.
That's exactly right.
those
And that's
cuts.
what, kind of gets us excited is if you can save someone 20-30% of their time of the boring low value add, they have more time to spend on the higher value add. I think there's an interesting example, and that's, we're built into everything Oracle does. They're an incredible partner and actually investor. But also there's a company called Borderless HR. It's actually another Canadian startup that maybe my colleagues here in the panel may have bumped into, but they provide HR sort of guidance and services for companies that have global workforces. And so what they're using this RAG, retrieval augmented generation capabilities, both generative models, a conversational interface, but this retrieval is to say, I've got an employee we're transferring from Azerbaijan to France. What's the difference in the tax codes? Well, that's a lot of information. And where do you find that? It will actually go out, search the information. By the way, this works across 109 languages, so it might be in Azerbaijani, and you might want the output in French, and pull that. Or what are the legal issues around getting a work permit for someone who's got this kind of passport? And so you could see that is an enormous asset to companies using borderless services, because they're able to just make better decisions much more quickly, not get into legal hot water at forgetting something. So I think there's both enhancing and improving existing workflows and products, as well as creating whole new ways to just provide better service and value.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the challenge of finding lawyers in France and Azerbaijan to get me some kind of coherent idea of what I need to do with this employee. Just finding them would be difficult enough. And if you can clear that out, you can save an awful lot of expensive lawyer time, I suppose. Lori Bieda, you have been working in machine learning and big data since long before it was super cool. At BMO, tell us a little bit about what the operation looks like. How many people are there? What kinds of people do data analytics for one of Canada's biggest banks?
Yeah, I sure will. It's an exciting space, and it always was, and now everybody knows about it, which is the difference.
Mm-hmm.
So we run a data and analytics center of excellence. We have over 450 mathletes at the center of our organization, fueling our retail and business bank. And we get up every day trying to figure out how to help clients make real financial progress. And our differentiator and secret sauce under the hood of that is leveraging data faster and more precise than our competitors. And so we've tested and are in the throes of all kinds of different AI-based applications, everything from machine learning. We have hundreds of models at play, over which 80 of which are AI-based models. We've done a lot in natural language processing to be able to parse and understand language and what customers are telling us, to be able to quickly get them answers that they're looking for, all the way through to different applications of robotics and even testing on the Gen AI front. So AI is alive and well at BMO.
BMO, in the Canadian corporate world, has basically for most purposes, all the resources in the world and all the reason to apply them to these problems. But what kinds of problems do you encounter at BMO that would be common to smaller enterprises or startups?
Yeah, fair enough. I think we all share a common understanding, whether you're a large enterprise or a small enterprises, and that traces back to the customer, what it is that we can do to make the customer's life easier. So one application, and it's happening in multiple places and certainly within our own, is that they call a contact center, or they're trying to reach us through multiple channels, and they're saying some stuff, but we're really not attaching what it is that the customer's looking for with the content that the company has to deliver and the information it has to deliver. And so I think we talk a lot about AI, and we talk about the fact that there's bias in the water, but the reality is humans have bias in the water too. And so they're not always giving the right information at the right time when customers need it. And that's true of small enterprises and large ones. And so one of the examples that I'll offer that we did is we looked at the percentage of folks calling into the contact centers and what it is that they're looking for. And we use large language models and natural language processing to figure out what it is they're calling about and what are the themes around that, and worked very diligently to parse that out. And we're able to divert 300,000 calls so that customers got what they want in one touch. So they went into a channel, they got the information that they were looking for, and the reduction in error rates went from 26% to 3%. And this is what earned us a Global Analytics AI Innovation Award more recently, because we put our money and our emphasis where the customer needed it. And the net result was a huge uplift in customer satisfaction. And we, in fact, lead the market from a JD Power perspective today.
What was the reduction in error rates? I just want to hit that again.
Yeah, and that's
3%.
To 3%. And that's where I think people look at AI and they get worried. And it's not to say that there ought not be guardrails, most definitely, and governance. But the truth is that there are things happening today that are not optimal. And I think we're worried with respect to AI, because AI it's got inherent biases and hallucinations, and it's at scale and it's a box. But the reality is it exists today. And so you're looking to find those incremental opportunities to make things better for the customer every day through the advent of data and the usage of AI, which is what it is that we do.
I'm going to bring in a question from the audience and actually encourage everyone to ask more. And I think I've understood it correctly. It's from Michelle C, talking about the boring, low-value work that AI can replace, and that's its promise. But there's also a cost to that. There are people who do boring, low-value jobs, but they apply human intelligence and the human soul to some of these things, to customer service, to advising people what to wear, to the work of moving an employee from one country to another. So how do you think about that problem, to the idea that AI will be replacing the personal touch, and it's not just sort of a sentimental thing, that the personal touch and personal judgment matters? Martin, you want to go first?
I can take that. I mean, every single technology innovation, we've heard this. The steam engine replaced human physical labor. And I'm sure a lot of people said, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to carry stones anymore because now we have a steam engine to do it. I think it was, incredibly helpful for creating better jobs, more economic value. Same thing with digital. I think, one example that I like to think about is, I don't think anyone says, oh my gosh, I hate the fact that I have to use my banking app from BMO. I really wish I could call up a human and ask them my bank balance. No, because it's much more enjoyable, much quicker, much better to use what are really quite wonderful apps on our phones and computers to do that. It's been an improvement. It hasn't just been replacing. I'm sure we can hear more from the experts at the bank, but I think that's been enormously beneficial to me as a consumer, and I think the same is true here. And so, when word processors came around. It's true that maybe there aren't as many people in the typing pool, but the people who were in the typing pool very quickly got much more enjoyable, much more creative, much more high value add and better paid jobs as accountants or as copywriters or whatever the case is. And the same is going to be true here. One example, very concrete example, we're working with Oracle, who's very leaned into the medical profession. They spent, I think, $28 billion buying Cerner. It's something very close to Larry Ellison's heart. And he talked about how doctors and other clinicians spend 3.5 hours a day doing patient discharge forms and other notes, just admin tasks. He believes using our technology, as well as listening devices, that he can get sort of first draft of notes or discharge forms, first draft that will then be reviewed, but take that 3.5 hours down to 20 minutes. And so that means that those doctors and surgeons and nurses and anesthetists, et cetera, have 3 hours more a day to spend with patients, to teach themselves new capabilities, to operate, to sleep, and to be more on the ball for tomorrow's brain surgery. And so this is going to be very, very beneficial overall, even though there may be a bit of a shift in terms of some specific tasks, I think.
I can maybe weigh in
Sure, please.
or two as well. I think, one of the things that I think that in our fast-paced world, we've often lost some of that human connectivity and that time that we get to spend because we have the burden of other things. And I think that that's something that we'll be able to go back to, is our relationships and the time that we can spend. Specifically, in our use case in the store, you've got associates who can now have these fun conversations around outfits with the customers. That's a lot more fun than just sort of moving things around. And I don't mean to belittle a store associate's job, but there can be added bits of color and things that we can do with the AI that we bring in. And so it doesn't need to be a wholesale losing of a job. It can just be an augmentation, or it can be something that really drives, additional aspects.
Mila, sticking with you, AI is not cheap and it's not simple. And you say that Pronti AI has 6 machine learning models beavering away under the hood. What obstacles did you run into in trying to incorporate that much artificial intelligence in a brand new startup?
Lots. I think there's 3 that really come to mind. So when we first started, we really needed to look for the data. So data was a huge sort of gap, and we needed to go out there and create it and find it and figure out a way in which to understand outfits. So this is really why we created the Pronti consumer mobile app, and now we get this joy of even understanding trends in outfits. There was funding challenges. The funding landscape hasn't been very lush. Pronti also sits at an interesting crossroads where we're a little bit deep tech, we're a little bit consumer, we're a little bit B2B, and we've been doing this stepwise process to sort of get to our grand vision, but that has meant that the metrics that we're sort of working with don't tend to fit or lend itself to traditional sort of VC checkpoints. So that's been a little bit of a challenge. And I think the big one that probably everybody can relate to is timing. Like timing is such an interesting thing, and it's so hard to predict. When we started, people didn't believe it was possible, that outfits were more of an art, and that this was not something that a machine could do. And I can now really see that shift. There's forward-thinking retailers who are adopting. There's buzzes at every retail conference about AI. So certainly I think people are starting to become more aware. And then we have that next part of adopting it and bringing it in-house and like really sort of embracing it, that I think this discussion's all about.
Yeah, if I may add, on the small side versus large, I think there's this fallacy that the larger the organization, you have infinite amounts of resources, it becomes easy to implement AI. And what I would say is that that also comes with a tax. It comes with legacy systems. It comes with the need to integrate across multiple places. It comes with a crushing amount of policy. And on the other side, you have nimbleness. And I don't undermine how difficult it is to spin up SME organizations and put AI inside. I see that in the thread. But the ability to have AI embedded within inside of applications and CRM systems, I'll pick on a company like Salesforce, for example. From small business all the way through to large scale enterprise, there's AI inside of the application, and the ability to be able to spin that up at a moment's notice to be able to curate and have a better customer conversation. So I think that the technology has really come a long way on the cloud side and on the overarching side to be able to enable small businesses to have access to what large businesses have had for a while.
Martin, how does Cohere approach that problem? How do you make your products accessible to smaller businesses that don't necessarily have all the resources that a large one would have?
Yeah, I think we see the world in a bit like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And if you think about the base of that pyramid or triangle, those are the mass market generic use cases. I don't mean generic in a bad way, that billions and billions of us are going to use many times an hour, probably. Those are going to be extremely well served by Microsoft and Google. They'll just be built into the productivity suites we already use. And so if you're using Google Meets, you'll get a summary of your meeting and the action items highlighted, sent out by Gmail to the respondents within 30 seconds of the end of that meeting. We just like there's no autocomplete startups or spell check startups anymore. If you want to quickly draft 10 emails, that'll be done within Microsoft Outlook. And that'll be great. We'll all pay a bit more. It'll be a huge amount of value for us as customers, and then for the companies that provide those. I think one level up, we heard a little bit about Salesforce. They're also an investor in us, both in our C and in our D that's about to close. And companies like Salesforce and Oracle and SAP and Bloomberg and so on, these are B2B SaaS companies that are built into every enterprise in the world, and they're not going anywhere. And they're not doing proofs of concept or playing around with demos. They don't have time. They're just building this stuff into what they do. I gave the example of 200 plus features in NetSuite that are now rolled out across 100, soon 1,000, eventually in the summer 37,000 of their enterprise customers. And so I think small and medium enterprises will have access to many of these kind of capabilities in the services that they get from their service providers. The top of that, though, is where we work with companies that really want to create alpha, really want to create differentiation against, compared to their competitors. And that's where we believe that every sophisticated enterprise will have their own LLM capability, powered by Cohere as our aspiration, which is going to be deployed inside their data environment, fine-tuned, trained, customized on their data with their annotators, their expertise, their experience, to create something that their competitors can't do. Maybe that's a legal firm being able to have their own capability with their specific knowledge of contract law to create really ironclad contracts in a way that would save their client from having some liability, or more quickly look at case law to come up with answers before the prosecution is able to do it, or something like that. And so we think about that. If you're a small company, where can you take the advantage of these features that are going to be built into other products that you can, and services that you can access? And where is it that you may want to focus on a very small number of bespoke capabilities that would give you an advantage over your competitors? And so our platform is accessible to all developers, all enterprises, to build with, not just the generative models that we know of, but also things like search and retrieval or classification, semantic analysis, and things like that. But we find it good to think about what can you get from others versus what might you think about building yourself. That latter is probably going to be a very small number of things where you believe it'll give you an edge over others.
Mila, there's a question from the audience that I want to put to you first, and it's from Stephen. As presented, it's how does a small country like Canada own IP and set up headquarters rather than leveraging our talent pool? Or is that enough? And Canada's AI talent pool is enormous. I was at an event last fall where I think someone from Meta was talking about AI in a sense being Canada's gift to the world, just because of all the foundational research that was done here. But you're trying to build a business. And Canada, is a notoriously difficult place to go from being a small business to a large business. That step is really tough. So actually, let me take a step back in that. Why are you doing this in Canada? You've worked in multiple countries. Why are you making Pronti here?
That's a great question. And I definitely, I think, have a lot to learn from Martin and how he has, sort of steered the ship and what he's thinking of for growth. So the innovation and the startup ecosystem, I think, is a really important part of the Canadian economy. I came back here because of two main incubators that are near and dear to my heart. So the first one's the Creative Destruction Lab out of the University of Toronto. A mentor of mine, Ajay Agarwal, was the one who convinced me to come back for a program that the CDL was running. And then the Velocity Incubator has been just a really great place and really is very connected to the University of Waterloo, which has a lot of talent that is both from the University of Waterloo and around it. So these are things that I think are really great parts of this local ecosystem that I came back for, but it doesn't just stop there. Like across Canada, we have a number of different spots, and those can really be fostered by fostering, I think, startups and early stage businesses, and then working in the various chasms and things that can happen as you try and grow and scale in order to keep it a fertile ground. So that's everything from the hot topics around taxes to how do we allocate that amazing AI budget? Where does it go? Does it go to research? Does it go to startups? Does it go to scale-ups? So I think being thoughtful in all of that can help. I'm not sure if that's as good of an answer as the audience member wants, but I'm definitely pro startup ecosystem.
Yeah, you're living it. Laurie, BMO is in the investing in things business. How do you think of this problem of scaling companies from small to medium and beyond?
Yeah, smart question. I get on the talent side, there's a global analytics talent drought, and there has been for some time, where demand far outpaces supply. So folks who are managing data and translating that data into an insight that can be monetized, you cannot find enough of them. And so what I think will happen on the talent side in an effort to get this to scale is we're in this massive build, right? So you're not going to eliminate analytical jobs tomorrow because those same people are actually building some of the models. But you can transform and teach and put them through analytics universities like the one that we've created, so that you migrate talent and you migrate thinking. So folks doing database engineering, folks doing kind of just general modeling, and PhD statisticians augment, and then they start to become more meaningful and skilled in the AI space. So I think that is inevitable. And I think that from a business side, we all need to understand AI because it has vast applications, whether it's operational efficiency, top line revenue generation or customer experience. It has all benefits across the SME sector all the way through to corporate, but there's a lot of people in the background building those applications. So for Canada to hang on to them, we need to compete on a global scale. You need to pay accordingly. You need to make sure that their ramp and their satisfaction. Analysts, I've been managing analysts for over 25 years. They're heady individuals who love to solve a problem. You give them a thorny problem, you keep them. And you give them a number of thorny problems, string after string, you keep them. And before you know it, you have this swell and groundswell of individuals within our country who are the thought bed for us to be able to propel forward and further own AI.
Martin, my version of the question for you is, you say Cohere is about to close a Series D capital raise. You don't hear about too many Canadian companies reaching the Series D level. What has kept Cohere in this country rather than opening a second headquarters that soon becomes the main HQ in the States or somewhere else?
Well, I think simple answer is the increase in capital gains tax. I think that's a wonderful reason to stay in Canada as one. That's
I sense a certain
dripping sarcasm.
Yes.
But I think I'm going to be a bit provocative here. There are a lot of reasons to not scale a company, start a company here. I'm sure, there's a reason why Silicon Valley is what it is. And now New York has become quite a strong position. Paris is really growing. Macron has actually reduced corporate taxes. He's relaxed the employment laws. I know of a Canadian company that moved from Vancouver to Paris in order to take advantage of some of the ecosystem there, and we seem to be kind of putting up more reasons to not set up here, which is a shame. The reason, I graduated from McGill in 1993, and I spent most of the next 30 years overseas in Germany, Spain, 5 years in London, 15 in New York, LA, San Francisco. And our co-founder, Aidan, was one of the inventors of the transformer, the T in GPT, when he was at Google Brain in Mountain View, did his PhD in Oxford, and he and his co-founders wanted to create a generational company here in Canada. And one of the reasons is because the talent is incredible. U of T, Geoffrey Hinton's lab specifically, has basically populated most of the leading AI labs in the world, right? So Yann LeCun from Meta, he's in New York, but he's from Canada. Ilya, who co-founded OpenAI, was from U of T. Leaders at Apple, at Uber, at you name it, and so we have amazing talent. We pat ourselves in the back for it, but all that talent, all the top talent, generally goes elsewhere to commercialize. And so Canada really needs to be the place to commercialize these kind of technologies. And I think what I've heard one of our co-founders, Ivan, say recently is it's a great place to start a business. It's a tough place to scale a business. And part of that is Canadians are risk averse. We basically have no Canadian companies coming to us until they saw we had American customers, and then they take us seriously. We have this, this inferiority complex in Canada where we believe everything from the States is better. And so generally, we actually now have on our press releases, if you look, we actually list a dual HQ. We list Toronto and San Francisco. That's not for the Americans. That's for the Canadians. They only take you seriously if they think that you're headquartered in the US. And it's a shame. And so what I think, I've been saying this, my folks are from Europe, but we live in Toronto. They're now in Vancouver. I went to the 2010 Olympics, and for the first time, we did something very un-Canadian. We said, "F it, we're going to own the podium. We're not going to be good with a silver like in Montreal and Calgary, the only country to never win a gold at our own Olympics. We did it twice. We won 14 golds, and I think we have the chance to own the podium in AI. But we need to really, be risk takers. Most of our investors are not from Canada; they're very risk averse. And we need companies to adopt it. We adopt right now at half the rate of US companies. We need to have the government become a customer and be a user of AI and not just talk about existential risk and safety and, how can we slow things down? Start adopting it. Just easy stuff like how do you get information about renewing your driver's license or whatever it might be, and show that we're a leader by adopting it faster than others. I think the AI elements of the budget are certainly a step in the right direction in some ways, but I think there's got to be a lot more from the public sector and private sector to just own the podium. That we want Canadians to be trained. We want people to be trained in Canada, but then want to stay here, to go to Waterloo, right? To stay in Toronto, to stay in Montreal, whatever, to scale this. So, but it is tough. There are, one of our investors said, who does happen to be Canadian. He said there are already 52 reasons not to set up a business here. Don't give us a 53rd. But I think the talent, clean power for AI data centers. There's a lot of things that we could build on if we say, like in Vancouver, we collectively are going to own the podium here, and we need to put a whole bunch of things to play. And we're trying very hard to do that. We want to give those U of T folks and others a chance to stay in Canada to commercialize, create generational wealth, invest in the next round of startups, and so on. And it creates this virtuous circle that ends up with a Silicon Valley.
To play your part in the ecosystem that Mila's talking about.
Exactly.
The big players have to do all the things that the small players benefit from, so they can grow. Martin, sticking with you, but briefly, and to drag this back to the banner subject of the conversation, when you're dealing with a potential new customer, someone says, I have to get AI into my business somehow. Do you find it's a bigger problem that people have inflated expectations, or they're overly skeptical and are kind of just showing up because they feel like they have to?
It's a great question. It's kind of a combination of both, perhaps. But I think what we encourage companies to do is not spend a ton of time on analysis. Don't do a strategy project to find the top 137 potential use cases and rank them and do ROIs. Just find something, potentially something a bit banal, not high risk, and deploy it in production at scale. And so it could be something as simple as your employee onboarding. How can we make that more enjoyable through using a sort of conversational interface and then access to all our internal documents? At Cohere, we don't do onboarding anymore. We just, we have Coral, which is our internal sort of knowledge agent. It has access to all of our Notion, Slack, emails, whatever. Someone asks a question about what they want to know, whether that's a technical approach or where we have corporate rates on hotels in San Francisco, and they get the result, the answer. And so, but deploying it at scale means you figure out how to actually make it work with access rights, with the compute resources you need, tying into your data systems, all the boring, yucky stuff that has to get done. And then then it also creates trust, and it creates excitement. Like, wow, this is actually making my day more enjoyable, better, more productive. And then everyone starts to come up with more and more ideas. Oh, imagine if we could do this, that, and the other. So I think that's what we're saying.
Pick
is
one
not,
thing,
yeah,
pick
not
one
that,
thing and follow it all the way through to the end of the process.
Precisely.
I think I would even chime in and say, like, this is just a really great mantra for businesses to get started. And by getting started, then you can start to wade into it, as opposed to if you lag, then you have a huge adoption to leap over. And there are lots of really interesting small ways to get involved in AI, including startups.
Including startups. Mila, without the machine learning mechanisms that underlie Pronti, is there any way that an app could do what Pronti does? Like, just play with the thought. Is it conceivable?
Well, not really, because it would be much more random. And there wouldn't be a learning function in it.
So this is a thing that is created only because Pronti exists only because of the AI technology. It doesn't just make it better, it makes it possible in the first place. Correct. Laurie, are there things at BMO that are possible, whole fields of service that are possible only because of the application of machine learning or generative AI?
Most definitely, because the vast majority of data that you create now is loose in language. It's not a byte of data. It's a string. It's difficult to get your arms around, and we're creating it at a rapid pace. And so the only way to monetize that is to break it apart, and the only way to do that is through AI. So there's whole swaths of data that we're now collecting and can't afford to store through cloud that would otherwise just be an island of information that could not be monetized unless you had AI put against that particular problem. So it's huge and transformative. And I think you end up having to play on, I think, to support the point around testing, you test. It's like you test a model and it's plus or minus 10% of the actuals. You need to test your way into AI. And if you're late, you'll miss the game entirely and you'll get clobbered. And by the time others figure out the proper regulations and guardrails around it, you will spend so much time in catch-up mode that they'll surpass you. The machine will surpass you. And nobody wants that. And so I think we're all grappling collectively with fear on one end, and then this kind of nascent desire for innovation on the other end. And we can't sort of find our way into the messy middle. And you take a process and you test it out. You take something that's customer facing, you test it out, but you put the container around it to see that you're testing it out in a way that's not harmful for customers. But we're in this environment where he who tests first wins. She who tests first.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
So a question I'm going to ask each of you to probably sort of close this out. I'll start with you, Laurie. Where should businesses in this country be using AI in a way that most of them aren't in order to improve their productivity? Where's the biggest bang for the buck, do you think?
The operational efficiency plays that I see are really in kind of co-pilot type of operations, whether they're in contact centers, whether adjacent to digital channels, whether adjacent to your stores. It's like an aid that's serving up information in a dynamic manner. I mentioned before that it's this connection of content to consumer and grabbing policy, grabbing information, grabbing outfits, grabbing pricing, whatever it happens to be. That elegance of connecting those two things when a customer wants it is transformative. It transforms operational efficiency. It drives revenue. It makes people delighted. It engenders loyalty. Everything sort of works. And I think there's this debate in the world around what's back office versus front office. They're like, test Gen AI and test AI in the back office, like in your policies. But good Lord, don't put it in front of the customer, because you run the risk of sending some improper information out there. And you need to do both. And most of the companies that I see around the globe now are less focused on the revenue generation element. They're more kind of thinning out the operational efficiency with the hopes that their operating leverage, for example, improves on account of that. And I think that's a safe place to go. But at some point you branch into the front, you branch into what the customer sees, and you establish the guardrails, and you tune and tune and tune until such a point what the customer sees is equal to and better than what you would have delivered through a human.
But if I understood you correctly, you think that the first step for most operations would be internal back office type processes, assisting
and op
employees
efficiency,
to work better.
operational efficiency, yeah.
Martin, what do you think? Where will Canadian business get its biggest bang for the buck? And it might be actually in sort of what types of processes or what sectors ought to be picking this up and running with it the fastest.
I mean, I'm going to be cheeky and say everywhere. But I think, I mean, I agree with those points about, you know, sort of where the quick value can be seen. But I think it's important to just step back for a second. This is easily the biggest disruption and transformation in how humans and computers interact since May 1993, when the Mosaic browser came out. And that changed everything. If you remember back, unfortunately, I can, to, you know, before the internet browser and after, like, life completely changed. Every company changed. Every software was rewritten, everything, every interaction with customers and so on. The same is going to happen now. And so I think there's two sort of meta groupings that I talk about. I used to work at Google before this, and the mission of Google is to organize the world's information and make it accessible to all, and that's pretty cool. We think the same is true here, but of a company's internal information, because of course Google generally is the sort of the world's information, whether that's videos on YouTube where I used to work, or whether that's search or whatever it might be. And so these intelligent sort of agents that will organize and make accessible the internal information of a company safely in their environment and allow you to access it, as we just heard about, as well as that what we're working on now is tool use, then take action with tools, you know, using a loan system, or using a charting program, or writing an email, or booking a plane ticket. There's a huge amount of exciting stuff that can happen there. And the same is true then of your service provider customer relationship, that we as consumers or as customers are just going to demand to interact with our companies that way. So similar back in 2008, if you were a bank and you didn't have a really great mobile app experience, you would lose custom to your competitor who did. And the same is true here. If you're not able to offer a really delightful experience that is better than, as we just heard, better than the alternative, you will lose business. And just like in the late 90s, there are many companies that do not exist today because they did not adopt digital quickly, while others did. And we're going to see a lot of companies these days who don't move quickly, who will, fall.
Companies that didn't adopt digital. You're talking to someone who used to work in a newspaper, so that's a process I'm very familiar with.
Although the New York Times and the FT
did
a great pivot, and so it's not like it's going to destroy everything, but I think that's a good analogy.
Mila, what's your take on this? Whose train is leaving first? Who needs to be running down the platform to get on it?
I think I'm just going to make it easier on everybody and just say, just start, just try, go have some conversation with some partners that can help you navigate it. Cause I think, the companies are out there to help service. Like I'm here, Cohere's here, even BMO. I think there are lots of resources out where companies can start to ask the questions about their own use cases. Will help.
I gotta end this. I could talk to each of you, I think, for another solid hour, but apparently that's not allowed. Thank you all for participating in this panel. It was a really great discussion, and you're all huge contributors to it. So Mila Banerjee, CEO and tech lead at Pronti AI, Lori Bieda, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at BMO, Martin Cohn, President and Chief Operating Officer at Cohere, each of you with tremendous resumes behind all those current titles. Thank you all for being part of this. I want to thank also Microsoft and John Weigelt for their sponsorship of this event. Without them, it's not possible. Thank you to the audience. Thank you all for joining us today, subscribers, new and longstanding, and those who are about to become subscribers. We'll put a link into how to take advantage of our current deal in the chat. Particularly need to thank the Logix business team, people who you don't see on screen, but without whom truly none of this happens, especially Kim Jose, who's the main organizer of this event and does an enormous amount of work to make these things happen. I want to tell you about upcoming events. Actually, the next big one we have, really big one, is our 2024 summit. We did one in 2023. It was a huge success. We're doing one again in 2024. It's going to be in Toronto on October 28th, after the summer. You should reach out to Ariel Lepper-Walker, who's our partnerships manager, if you want to host an event with the Logic or sponsor the summit. We have a lot of opportunities for that. Folks, keep an eye on your inboxes for all our future events. Whenever they're coming up, we will make sure to let you know.